Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. The Copyright Amendment Bill has been passed by the National Assembly and is now sitting with the National Council of Provinces, which offered only 5 days in February for public submissions on the bill. The NCOP is due to vote on the bill on Wednesday, the 20th of March, and a lot of disagreement has gone on publicly about this process. But the band Satori, South Africa, who have launched their second album in November last year, are one of the many artists that are concerned about the impact of the impending bill. They say there is a need to update South Africa's outdated copyright law. It's actually been in place since 1978, but artists agree with the intentions of bringing copyright law up to date with the digital age to protect the rights of artists and composers, but that the bill in its current form is poorly drafted and will ultimately destroy the livelihoods of artists. And joining us now is Errol Ali. He's the co-founder and lead singer, Zara Ali, of the band Satori South Africa. A warm welcome to both of you. Quite a conversation on Twitter, on the media over the week about this process. Errol, let's start with you. What are your misgivings about the process and the bill in its current form?
From the perspective of Satori, we just feel that not enough time was given for all the stakeholders, interested and affected parties, to make input into this bill, to actually change it meaningfully, you know, to the benefit of artists out there. And secondly, as it was so rightly stated, the bill was drafted in 1978, and a lot has happened in the industry that requires change, and we just feel that that change should have gone a lot further, particularly with regard to the entrance of the digital age now. You know, we just feel that artists' rights would not be adequately protected.
Zara, as an artist, what are your misgivings? What are your concerns?
I think for us the most important one is definitely the fair use clause. That clause basically states that material can be used from various creatives without compensating them. And I think that's a very, very, very big issue that has been running in South Africa specifically for a very long time, of getting royalties and being paid for your works. You know, there are many legends in South Africa who have created amazing music and amazing albums, but they die poor. Their families are still struggling, and that is something we are fighting. And you know, this fair use clause is just not helping that situation at all.
The fair use clause is just a change of words, where in the previous legislation it was fair dealing.
Yes.
What would artists like to see? The total scrapping of those words, and which words to replace with, or what content would you like to see going with it?
For Satori, I think there were shortcomings, or there are shortcomings in collection agencies, and a lot of artists complain about royalties not being paid over, you know, and one would think, or one would have expected, that changes would have been brought about regarding those systemic deficiencies within the industry that would actually strengthen the position of artists and the intellectual property.
Zara, as you rightly stated, that the regulations of copyright are essentially about the protection of creative work and how the usage of this work is remunerated.
Exactly.
What do you think is missing in this process? The process that took place in February of final submissions, as you complained that it was only for a week, Errol, was essentially just the final stage. This process has been going on since about 2015. Have you as a band been involved in this process?
We have, you know, we struggled in the beginning when we launched our first album, trying to get all the documentation and the support from these collecting societies. And with respect to that, we actually ended up launching our album in Germany, and our collecting society is based in Germany, due to the efficiencies, due to the support they are giving us. And you know, that is what is currently happening. You know, South Africans are like leaving the country and, you know, actually creating work abroad, because their support and their collecting societies there are much more, you know, organized and up to date. And yeah, I think that's what has happened.
So you say you've been fully involved with this process. What for you, if the shoe was in the other foot and you were the legislator, what would be the content, the substance of the changes?
Definitely making sure that creatives, not just musicians, you know, authors, educators of intellectual property, are compensated. That, I think, is the biggest, most frustrating thing that everyone is going through, because this bill, there's a lot of great things within this bill, but I think that is the one thing that we all want to achieve and see, is just to make sure that our work, we are getting remuneration, we are getting recognized, and we are earning money from what we are creating.
And just to add to what Zara has said there now, I think it is exceptionally important for there to actually be more transparency in how the royalties are actually worked out for the respective artists.
Take us into this world. Where do you feel there is a lack of transparency on, as you say, the operational side, where the monies are supposed to be paid out, but also on the legislative side in terms of how the National Council of Provinces has dealt with the process? Where do you feel that there was a shortcoming?
In terms of the legislative processes, I think that a lot of more input could have been obtained from interested and affected parties. There was just this.
But also there were parties who did submit their opinion. Do you think that those opinions were disregarded?
That seems to be the case, and documented in the news as well. A lot of interested and affected parties' contributions were not factored into the legislation.
Really? Why do you think that is the case?
I am not sure. I am still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Because one would think, Zara, that even the resumption of this process would be for the benefit of creatives, wouldn't it?
That's what we were hoping for.
Yeah.
And we hope so, yeah.
So how are creatives, in your case, in the music fraternity, how are these entities coming together to create one voice to speak to government?
I know through social media, you know, social media is a very, very, very strong point where a lot of musicians... It's a strong voice,
but it's not a formal submission.
Exactly, it's not a formal submission. And like Errol was saying, you know, there were people that have within the industry that submitted their viewpoints and their inputs, and they've come forth and basically said that many of what they were hoping to see was not put forth in this bill.
Yeah.
To add on to what Zara is saying, part of the problem is like I was saying earlier, some of the systemic deficiencies that exist within the industry. I mean, we know that recently the Chief Executive Officer of SAMRO is no more. And I believe from reliable resources that she was doing a very good job in transforming the organization and making it relevant for artists.
Errol, clarify that for us, because as far as we've heard is that the problems at SAMRO are not necessarily legislative. They're just not doing what they're supposed to do, which is paying artists their royalties. Are you saying that's not the case?
My sense is that it is a management issue, you know, and I don't think that artists' interests have been effectively looked after.
Yeah.
Let me rather put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of the Copyright Amendment Bill, What would artists like to see happening now? Because any moment, the only thing that could hold it back now is the upcoming election. But in terms of engagement with the National Council of Provinces between now and the time when it's enacted, what kind of conversations would you like to see taking place?
The kind of conversations that we'd like to see taking place is for the bill to be reviewed. I think that is
NCOP would argue that that is what is being done. They are reviewing. That's why it's gotten up to bill status, where the required conversations and submissions have already taken place, and now it's come up to here.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, a lot of interested and affected parties feel that their contributions were not factored into the actual drafting of the bill. And that is problematic.
Honestly, though, do you feel that these affected parties, these stakeholders, have taken the required amount of time to engage with NCOP about their gripes?
Definitely.
Have they?
Yes.
How though?
Through submissions.
Yeah, through submissions.
Through the submission process.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that the fair use clause is the one that's really grinding people's... but what other issues are there?
The other issues for me is the mention of digital in the preamble of the bill.
Yeah.
Without going into extensive explanation of how it's going to improve and protect artists.
Yeah.
That is critical to us.
Do you agree, though, that in the digital age, what you're raising is a concern globally, not only in South Africa? How to regulate creative work in this time when people can just reach out for their phone and create stuff or take other people's stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, last week, the EU rejected their copyright bill for the very same reasons as well.
Yeah.
You know.
So what to be done?
I think what's important is for us not just to be vocal on social media. We need to submit. We need to be vocal to the parties that can actually help us and fix this. And I think that's what's very important, because I know I'm a social media activist, and
which is great,
and you know, it's great.
That's the place to be an activist.
It's the place to be, but you know, there are certain areas there are other areas
where you need to take it further.
Exactly, where we need to take it further. And I think that's what we need to do collectively as creatives, is to voice it together, not just on social media, but to the submissions team that actually have a say in all of this.
We need to wrap. Thank you so much. It's really exciting that you're activists as well as artists. But tell us quickly about Satori, where we can find your music and what type of music you produce.
Sure. So, gosh, we basically Afro jazz, and you can find us on Facebook under Satori South Africa. We have a website, satorisouthafrica.co.za. We'll be doing a few international tours this year, as well as a lot of local tours in the pipeline. And we are in the process of opening up a recording studio for the public to be able to use. And you really want to fully take charge of your work? Yes, and to take charge of our work.
Absolutely, because internationally, the music industry is a $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
And it is an economic sector that hasn't fully been explored in this country. You know, and with the right legislation in place, with artists being remunerated the way they should, with our music being protected, whether it's on digital platforms or whatever, that's what we are striving for. That's what we want.
Errol, Ali and Zara are members of the Satori South Africa band. Thank you so much for making the time to come through on the Saturday morning. And we're having a conversation. I imagine this conversation we're going to continue to have on the show with different stakeholders about the copyright amendment bill. You're watching The Agenda. Let's take a break.